Today's topic is Tarot 101. All right, so a little bit of the tarot, of the history of the tarot. Playing cards were in existence for at least 800 years prior to tarot decks. In 1377 AD, a German monk named Brother Johannes von Reinfeld described a series of painted cards that worked as an allegorical journey of life and the soul. And these are just annotations to a Liz Dean book that I do use as a supplementary manual in my comprehensive tarot reading course. The first deck was created in 1415 in northern Italy, the Visconti Sforza cards. It was a fad for the wealthy to play the tarot card game. The nobles had artists paint cards. The high priestess in that deck was a woman in the family, actually. They painted actually a particular woman in the family as the high priestess. High priestess, if you're not aware, is of course number 2 in your major arcana, which we're going to learn the major arcana today, the basic outline of it and the fool's journey. Tarot, the word tarot comes from tarocchi, an Italian card game that came before tarot. And there's also a river named Taro near Milan. And on the Wheel of Fortune card, you can see T-A-R-O, Taro, T-A-R-O. And that represents the river. But there's also the Wheel of Fortune card. And this is the type of stuff we get really deep into in the comprehensive tarot reading course starting in November, is all the symbology. So it also is R-O-T-A, rota, which is Latin for wheel. And then you've got the Hebrew symbols here that all mean something in particular. And then you've got the alchemical symbols as well. So you learn all that if you end up going on and doing the full course. But yeah, T-A-R-O is in reference to the river in Italy. The church called these cards the Devil's Picture Book. The Tarot de Marseille is the earliest tarot deck that resembles today's cards. Marseille decks are very interesting. They're very they look like Picasso paintings. They're very abstract. Printed most famously in 1760 by Nicolas Convé. And one of the cool things about doing the full-length tarot reading course is that you get to see all sorts of other different versions of the tarot. So what I'm showing you is this is the Rider Waite. And actually, this is the Universal Waite. This one. This has always been my favorite deck with the stars on the back. In the full-length course, though, I show you all sorts of other different decks. Because it's cool because, every artist of, especially of the prominent, famous tarot decks has had a different take on things over the years. And there's different symbols that are expressed more strongly in different decks than others. Diana wrote, I actually woke up to an intense stream this morning at 11:11 and received a message about the tarot being a helpful tool for me now. I haven't played with tarot since my teens. I love oracles, but I've had resistance to learning or relearning the tarot. I borrowed a deck from a friend for today. Maybe you had a negative experience with it in another life, I wonder, Diana. But you should relearn it because that's how you would heal that karma, whatever that karma is. Only since 1781 is there evidence of tarot cards being used for divination, and it became more common during the 19th century. So a lot of people think tarot is really, really old. It's actually not that old. It goes back to the 19th century and maybe briefly into the 18th century. As far as being a divination tool, and then before then, for the centuries before that, it was a game. It was a game. But that being said, there are some scholars that believe that the origins of the tarot deck actually go back much further, and I do believe that as well, going back to the origins of Christianity in the 1st century AD, or maybe even back to ancient Egypt. And others will say that it comes from 10th century China even. So who knows? But my sense has always been that it does go back further than just the modern era, and it probably goes back. I think it goes back to all of those. I think it goes back to, around the year 0, also ancient China, and also ancient Egypt. Do you need to be psychic to learn the tarot? And if you don't feel like you're psychic, can you learn to be psychic. Psychism is a gift, yet it can come at different points in one's life. Psychic skills can and need to be developed as skills. They are skills to be developed. For example, a pitcher, right, in baseball, I love baseball. So, when I played Little League Baseball, I could hit pretty well, I always could hit pretty well, but I couldn't pitch for shit. You know, I'd go to the pitch speed machine. I could throw like 58 when I was, what I mean? And I'm 12, and then there's like teammates of mine throwing like 82 at age 12. It's a gift, and it's kind of always been known amongst sporting circles that pitchers have, they're gifted with an arm. Like in Bull Durham, one of my favorite movies, right? Nuke LaLoosh, and Crash Davis is like, yeah, you got $1 million arm, but I got something to say about that 5 cent head of yours, right? Crash Davis being the veteran old catcher who came from the big leagues down to Single A Durham. Great movie, right? To mentor Nuke LaLoosh, the hot new prospect, for the organization, who had a gift of an arm, but was kind of nuts, right? And that's why they brought in the veteran catcher to try to bring him down to earth and get him to learn the mental side of pitching. So, I mean, I was not gifted with an arm, but I was gifted with psychic skills, and it's pretty cool. So for me, like learning the tarot, learning any psychic modality, any healing modality, really anything in this whole world, this whole realm has always been pretty darn easy for me. So, and with it being easy for me, it's I pick things up really quickly. I pick things up really, really quickly. But not, everyone does. So that's why like I structure the 15-week course in a way that anyone at any level, by the end of the course, as long as they complete the course, they will then be at a very advanced level. That's why it's so long and treacherous. It's 15 3.5 hour calls, do the math, right? But if, you make it to the end of the course, you will know enough to be a professional. And I've had 6 or 7, counting people over the years that have taken the 15-week course and gone on to be a professional, like even some doing it literally full time as a tarot professional. Cosmic Oracle, Avalon Kisby is kind of her social media name. She's one of my former students that did that. So if you are more gifted, and a lot of you that are on this call are, you'll just pick it up faster. But that being said, it's still a skill that has to be developed. There's no two ways around having to develop it as a skill. If you don't think that you are super gifted when it comes to psychic stuff, it can still be learned. And in the process of learning it, one of the great things about the tarot is the process of learning it is somewhat of a left-brained expedition, really, because it's learning a lot of the numerology of the cards, the astrology of the cards, what every symbol in the cards means, the connections between the cards, right? What do the colors mean? What do the cards mean next to each other? Learning how to do spreads, and a lot of it is very left-brain logical. But as I teach you in the full 15-week course, once you lay the cards out, you throw all the logical learnings out the window, and it's just what your intuition says. And then you learn to kind of fuse together your logical understandings and logical connections with the intuitive side of things. So once you lay the cards out, you've opened up a portal, and that portal allows for the intuitive information to come through. Sylvie says, "This is my first class in tarot ever. Do not have a deck yet. Does practicing tarot help building our site?" Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or is it the other way around? But you can look at it either way. But like one of the things that I recommend, most for people that struggle with opening their intuition or feel stuck or blocked with their intuition is to learn the tarot, because it forces you. It forces you to develop. Every time you lay the cards out, as I said, you got to kind of throw out everything you've learned and just look at the cards and see what comes through. And with that, you'll start to realize that, oh, not only am I just getting the intuitive feeling, I'm also, seeing a vision, or I'm getting a message, right? So learning cards logically is important. But ultimately, as I said, readings are 90% intuition, mostly feeling. Caring for your deck and connecting with your deck. Okay. If you have a new deck, you want to make sure you touch the cards first, and you can even sleep with them under your pillow. But before you do a reading, okay, and I'm just going to use part of the deck because I have the Major Arcana cards separated, but touch the cards with your non-dominant hand, shuffle. Okay. Now, briefly, actually, I'll use the whole deck to shuffle, but we really do a lot of practice with shuffling on the full course. But briefly, okay, what I'm doing, I'm holding the deck with my left hand, and I'm moving the cards like this, okay, and at full speed. Then I'm once in a while flipping the portion of the cards that I have in my hand, flipping it, because I want to give a 50-50 chance for cards ultimately, when I lay them out, to come out either upright or reverse. Okay. So this is what it looks like full speed, essentially like this. All right. Now, this is not the only shuffling method. It's just the one that I was taught and learned. And actually, I wasn't even taught this. I developed this on my own, I believe. But you can see I've gotten pretty good at it over the years, where it looks really smooth. So at first, it's kind of inevitable when you're shuffling that you'll be fumbling with the cards a bit. But it just takes a lot of practice. You know, one way to know if you're a veteran tarot reader is just look at your cards themselves. They should be stained, dirty. They should look, your stains. They should have they should have the edges, rounded. They should look like they've been through the ringer. My cards have been on the dirt. They've been in the ocean. That's not an exaggeration. Not that I intended for them to be in the dirt or the ocean, but all veteran tarot readers, you will see that you get wear and tear on the cards. And the more wear and tear, the easier it is to shuffle, because it's a better grip on the cards. The brand new decks, they're glossier. So you just got to break them in. It's like breaking in a baseball mitt, or breaking in a pair of skates. You gotta break it in. Got to break it in. And I just use one deck for my readings, for self and other. But in the tarot reading course, I do show you guys a whole bunch of other different decks to just show you other artistic interpretations and what symbols that other decks give more credence to and give less, and vice versa. And a lot of readers, just for fun, in their readings do like to use multiple decks, and you could let the client choose, which decks. You could just use your intuition and and figure out which decks you want to use. You could use two decks kind of simultaneously to get more of a robust painting, so to speak, of the situation. But I do think it's a good idea ultimately to have kind of one go-to deck. Okay. What deck do you have? Is it Gilded Edge? No. So this one is the Universal Weight, which is, it's a form of the Rider-Waite. And the Rider-Waite is kind of the modern gold standard as far as decks go. I keep it just caring for my deck. I keep it in a special felt bag with a crystal. Okay, keeping a crystal with it helps to clear the energy. I always put it under the full moon, every single full moon, and I'll put it with the crystal under the full moon. So, if it's nice outside, I might leave it outside, and it's not windy. If it's windy or raining or snowing or whatever, I'll leave it on the windowsill, and it'll be just as good. It'll still get enough moonlight. Moonlight is the most cleansing and activating things for everything, for us, for our cards, for our tools, for everything. You can also sage your cards to clean them. That's another good way. Um, and you can even just, if you're in a pinch, and this happens to me sometimes, and you feel like your cards need to be cleansed, you can just visualize the violet flame over the cards. If as I said, when you get a brand new deck, great way to kind of acclimate your energy field and the deck's energy, because you want to think of the deck as like a friend. That's the best way to really think of it. Think of it as like a friend that you're getting to know, and you get to know how they communicate with you. Because when you start to become more advanced and more experienced, you'll realize that when you get a certain card, when you get the Two of Wands, for you it means something in particular. But for a certain client, every time they get the Strength card, it means something in particular for them. So the tarot develops its own language with you, and there's a language for you, and there's a language for clients that you see often, or friends or family that you read for often, where the same cards will come out and you know what they mean, because the tarot has kind of developed that language for you. And a great way to just learn, start off your learning, and I have us do this in the full 15-week course, is just stare at the cards, go through all 78 cards and study them. Just see what feelings, what vibe does the moon card give you? What emotions come up? What feelings do you have? What memories does it equate with in your own being? The Wheel of Fortune card. So go through, and you can do that now just for fun a little bit. If you have a deck in front of you, just go through a couple cards. You don't have to go through all 78 now, but just go through a couple cards, and what feelings do you get? What's the vibe you get from the card? It's a good way to put it. If you don't have a deck, my suggestion is that as I'm going through each of the, and it's okay, but my suggestion is as I'm going through each of the cards, I will hold them up, but you can also Google them so you can have them kind of closer in front of you. So I said, treat the deck like a lifelong friend that you're building a relationship with. I talked about you can collect other decks if you want, but I like to, encourage people to have one kind of go-to deck that, as I said, kind of becomes, worn and torn with use because it's your go-to. Intermittently make sure you have 78 cards. It's kind of a funny reminder, but yeah. So there's of course 78 cards in the deck, and if you're reading the cards both upright and reverse, it really it kind of creates 156 cards, and I really consider there to be in reality 156 cards because of that. But I've had so many times where I've just been like doing readings for weeks, and because I use the tarot almost every day. A lot of you that have had private readings with me, I've used it in your reading. And I just get a sense, it's like, oh boy, I haven't seen the tower in a while, or I haven't seen the world card in a while. So just once in a while, count through and make sure you have 78 cards. Because funny story, actually, right here, it happened. This was like 5 years ago, where I, just for a couple weeks, I guess I was short 2 cards, and I had no idea when and where I had dropped those 2 cards out of my deck. So I'm sitting here one day doing readings with people. I'm on the phone, and in between the readings, I look on this Ivy, and the two cards are there waiting for me. It was very magical. It was similar to that time where my angels left me a crystal down by the Genesee River that I had thrown in the Genesee River, and it had clearly went to the bottom of the Genesee River, which was a very deep, wide river. And I went down there 2 days later, and the crystal was there waiting for me. So it was a magical thing when those cards came back to me. But yeah, I also learned an important lesson that day is then just once in a while checking on your deck, make sure you still have 78 cards. The cards reflect the unconscious mind, we could say, which is connected to the field, the Akashic records. This is how they work. So the cards work via our connection to everything, which is the same way that any psychic modality works, right? Because if you think about the iceberg of consciousness, there's the conscious mind. Underneath that is the different levels of the subconscious mind, which are creating the patterns of our lives, right? Below that, the unconscious mind, which is where our traumas are stored. It's where the past life stuff is stored. It's where programs that are inevitable to unfold in our life, whether it's a program of a health issue or it's a program of any sort of major challenge, that's going to lie in the unconscious mind. And we could say that at the even deeper down, like the lower levels of the unconscious mind, we would get into the superconscious or the supermind. And that's the connection we have to everything. I like to visualize it as like these arrows shooting out that are just pointing to everything, right? And that's our connection to the all. That's our connection to the all. Treat the deck as a friend with respect, as I said. There are no bad cards. There are no bad cards. Almost every card can be interpreted as, positive or not so positive. I said probably with the exception of the sun, but arguably also even the sun, because like this, the sun is the only card that I teach where sometimes if it comes out reverse, it's actually pretty much the same meaning as upright. Could just mean it's like delayed gratification or delayed happiness, or success with a situation, but it's very positive. The only time is if you get, and it all boils down to your intuition. But if the sun reverse pops out and you get the intuition, you get the feeling that it's depression or sadness, then it very well may be. Okay. Don't read for yourself while you're anxious. Okay. The deck will develop its own language for you. Recognize recurring cards and what they mean for you. This can also happen to others you read for. As I said, you develop a language. The deck develops a language, even within a single reading when the same card keeps coming out. Sometimes the cards are very literal, okay, like the Six of Swords, going on a cruise or a canoe trip. Cards can be very cheeky like that. Sometimes the cards are much more subtle, like the Eight of Swords, representing a negative belief that is keeping you from success. Cards are an encouragement as well as a warning. For example, the Tower, right, can be saying watch out, but it can also be saying change is necessary, right? Also, the lightning bolt aspect of the Tower is about enlightenment and revelations. The Devil, right? It can be saying enjoy, the pleasures of the world. 666 as an angel number is just about experiencing the pleasures of the material world, right? There's nothing inherently bad about it, but it's also a warning as to be careful or it will tie you and cause problems, right? The cards can be used for advice on anything. Examples, interpersonal or interpreting past events, interpreting messages, predicting future outcomes, pointing out flaws and shortcomings, finding things. That's always a fun thing when you lose something to try to do a reading and figure out where it is. It does work. You just got to kind of, again, understand how the tarot is trying to tell you that something, where it is, right? It'll be very creative in its, in its language. For example, the Chariot card comes out, and back in medieval times where the cards come from, there were no automobiles, but maybe the Chariot comes out and it's saying that it's in your car, right? So, and one of the most important things is whatever you're reading on. This is one of the most important aspects of effective tarot reading is think to yourself, okay, when the card immediately came out, which symbols in the cards did I immediately get drawn to? Which symbols did I immediately get drawn to? And that's because that's going to show you which symbols are most important, because if for example, let's say the five of cups. So five of cups is the card of grief, but it's also the card of moving on. Okay, so when you draw the five of cups, are you drawn to the grieving person in black, or are you drawn to this two standing cups, or the bridge, bridge over troubled water, so to speak, which is, the part of the card that is about moving forward, moving on. So the cards tell stories through the symbols. Diana says, I'm feeling through the resistance, and it's deeply rooted in religious trauma. That makes sense. The tarot being more religious than any other oracles. As I mentioned, I love oracle cards and have many decks that I use regularly, but the tarot is much more specific, and that every tarot deck is basically the same, just different imagery. I've always had resistance to anything that has a religious vibe. Yeah, me too. The tarot is anti-religion. You got to understand that the tarot is pagan, okay? But within the context of it being pagan, it contains imagery from Christianity and from Judaism, okay? And even Islam with the crescent moon. So, but it's pagan. It is, the church back in medieval times and later on in the 19th and 20th century, and heck, literally now, the modern era, hates the tarot, thinks it's the devil's work, right? So to me, the tarot is anti-religion, but the symbology, the religious symbology that is, and first of all, it's very honest about religion. For example, the Hierophant card, right, which shows the Pope, and you've got the monks worshiping the Pope, and this is like the kind of the underlying structure of Christianity, right? Being this hierarchy of rule, where the idea is that as one goes higher up the hierarchy, one is more closely connected with God, right? Which is a load of shit. But then you can look at kind of what is behind these pillars? What is behind his throne? Nothing. And the pillars themselves being this very materialistic, showy, feature of very egocentric feature of wanting to appear to be strong, right? But in reality, there's nothing behind it. And the monks having bald heads, right? That's the crown chakra. And the the bald head's okay, there's this relationship with God and source, and just inherently, as we all have, right? But yet they're kneeling at the feet of the Pope. The hypocrisy of it. So the cards are very honest about Christianity and Judaism. They're certainly not singing the praises. They're not. And there's many other examples of that throughout the tarot. It's very neutral and honest in its interpretation of religion. So maybe not anti-religion, but it's neutral. It's because the magical thing about the tarot, one of the things that I love most about the tarot and what draws me is that the tarot can describe literally any feature of life, any event that can occur in life through any period of time, through any period of time. So in the modern era, now we have phones and we have we have Facebook and Instagram, and social media can be described in the tarot. We could say the strength card plus the eight of wands, right? That could be like posting on social media, and back to medieval times, the Hierophant representing, the Pope of the time, the Hermit card representing some like wise wizard. So the cards are timeless. They're timeless and they know no bounds. So they can be used to interpret any time period, any event. If we were to have an alien invasion, right? Not that that's going to happen, but you could probably describe that with like the Five of Swords plus maybe the Eight of Cups, right? So no, you can't name anything. It's not possible to name like a possible experience in life or an experience that you've had or anyone you know has had in life that can't be described with the tarot. So that's what I love about it. The cards can be used for advice on anything. So I use the cards in my everyday life. I don't use them every day, but I definitely pull them out for myself probably at least once a week. And it's to solve puzzles and riddles in my own life. A lot of times the question I'll ask at a certain point is, what advice do you have for me on the situation? And it's kind of a point blank and effective way of getting useful advice from the tarot, is just point blank asking, what advice do you have for me? Again, treating it like an entity, like a friend. And that's a very good thing to do. But you can ask for advice on literally anything. Interpreting past events that you don't fully understand, what the meaning of them was, why it happened, what the soul contracts involved were. Interpreting messages, predicting future outcomes, pointing out flaws and shortcomings, that you need to be aware of in things, finding things, what people think of you, what is the best decision to make, general advice or outlook for the day, for the week, for the year, timing events, etc. So it can be used for advice on anything. Sometimes the cards can only be interpreted in full after time passes and whatever events they were pointing to take place. This is why it's good to journal on your readings for yourself or for other. Do not read while anxious or fearful. Okay. That's something I learned, through experience. The cards will become clouded by your fear. Kind of the conscious mind that's feeling the fear can kind of hijack that unconscious connection to the Akashic records, and you won't get an accurate reading. Don't read more than once on the same topic. Now you can ask different questions around a particular topic, but don't read more than once. Don't do a draw more than once on the same topic, because what happens is that you'll get more jumbled and confused results, readings, with the subsequent draws, and it's a pointless exercise ultimately. Trust the first reading. And generally when we're doing like repeat draws, it's because either we don't trust the first reading, we don't fully understand it, or we don't like what it had to say. We're hoping it would be a bit of a different result, outcome, message, and so we're not really trusting it, and because of that, we're trying to redraw, but you're just going to get more confused that way. You're going to get more confused. So what I like to do is I always do this. I always take photographs, embracing the modern technology of my readings with my phone. So I always take photos of my draws, of my card draws, and I I then can go back, because really in reality we can only fully understand what the draw was trying to tell us as time passes. Like it always, and it's a fascinating thing, but time passes and you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Okay, because the cards are never wrong. As Miss Cleo, who, yeah, was kind of a scammer, used to say, the cards don't lie. And they don't. The cards don't lie. As long as you're in a relatively neutral state emotionally when you're doing the draw, you don't have to be perfect. Don't stress about it. But if you're feeling like in fear or overwhelmed, take some deep breaths first. Put on something that relaxes your nervous system, and then do the draw. Then do the draw, because you're much more likely to get an accurate answer when you're more grounded. And also, like, keeping a tarot journal. I have all you that are going to end up doing the 15-week course. All my students in that one, I always have them keep a tarot journal. And so not just taking a photo, but writing down some notes of what they felt around that draw, because that'll also help you when you go back and interpret it. And like for me, I'll go back, like, as I said, all right, I'm trying to kind of figure out a bit of a riddle right now. And so I did some readings yesterday. I'll do maybe tonight on just different aspects. It's okay to ask, as I said, questions around different aspects of the situation, but as I wrote here, just be careful not to ask the same question in just slightly different ways. And there is a difference. Like, for example, if you were to ask, should I break up with my boyfriend, right? And then the next question you asked was, would it be my highest good to break up with my boyfriend? Or what will the result be if I break up with my boyfriend? Like, that's the same question, different ways, versus asking, like, okay, what should I be thinking about? What should I be considering most when I'm thinking about my relationship? What is something that I need to be aware of that I haven't been thinking about? Those are two separate questions, right? Then a third question would be, okay, if I were to break up with my boyfriend, what would the outcome be? How would I feel? How would I experience life, right? Would I be happy with the decision? You can also, like, kind of wrap up multiple questions that are somewhat of the same thread into one draw, right? So you can kind of thread the needle of different threads into one draw. Tarot info and tarot reading tips more. Be patient and humble. No one is perfect. Just a cool little thing. The color of the sky reveals a lot about the cards when you're first learning them. So, look at the color of the Tower card. It's ominous, right? The Hermit card, it's introspective. The Wheel of Fortune card is more positive, right? The Moon card is kind of, it gives this feeling of it being night and looking into the inner world. So that's one piece. So just kind of in general, interpreting colors of the cards. And every card, of course, has multiple colors. So we're going to have multiple of these features. And don't take this too literally, but just take it as kind of an underlying template for understanding the cards. White being a starting point, a void, a blank sheet of paper. Gray representing the shadow, representing the unconscious minds. Black being the unknown, right? Or night. Red being vitality, willpower, and love. Yellow, joie de vivre, a French term meaning joy of life. Also mental energy, consciousness, decision making. Gold representing the sun, conscious eternity, but also greed. Orange, vitality, warmth, strength. Blue, being indifference, coolness, that's orange, or the blues. Sky blue, peace, spirituality, idealism. Green, representing freshness, youth, auspiciousness, and maturity. Dark green is nature, like in the Empress card. Earthy, long lasting. Beige, representing the human body. Okay, some beige character in the Five of Wands. Brown, representing being down to earth and grounded. King of Pentacles has some brown. Violet, representing the crown chakra, which is a mix of red and blue, and also the void. Like in the Eight of Cups, in the Six of Cups. Another piece of advice is don't. Here's the Seven of Cups as well. Don't overinterpret the numbers, like because numerology is an important aspect of the tarot. What is the numerology of 3? What is the numerology of 5? What is the numerology of 12, which then converts into 3, right? So the numerology is important. Don't just overinterpret them. Don't worry too much about the fact that it's the Ace of Pentacles versus the 3, but just understand that 1 is about a new beginning and 3 is about a group, right? So when you lay out a spread, like I teach a lot of specific spreads like the Celtic Cross, and many others in the full 15-week course, but I really also like to teach you, because this is how I do my readings, is to just lay out a number of cards. Just lay out cards until you feel satisfied, until you intuitively feel satisfied with how many cards you've laid out. So for me, when I do readings, I'm generally laying out 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 cards. And then also the key card, which is a more advanced thing. I don't know if we'll go into that today, but that's the card on the back of the deck, which it provides like a coloring. It provides a advice on how best to interpret what the rest of the draw is saying. So in the spread, like let's say you're just doing kind of a basic spread of like 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, etc. Is there a story being told? Is it a progression, right? Card placement is a big deal. So why is this card after the other? You got the sun before the tower. That's a heck of a big difference between the sun after the tower. The sun before the tower might be showing, success before the fall, and then vice versa is going to show, some sort of calamity, and then on the other side of it, some sort of rebirth, renewal. It's all for the best, in the end. Your own judgment and feeling of revolt toward any particular card highlights blind spots in your own spiritual evolution. And we'll do an exercise on this later. But for example, a lot of people really have a, not good feeling when seeing the death card. Actually, it's what scares a lot of people away from the tarot in the first place, right? Or the devil card. A lot of people really have kind of a bad internal reaction to the devil card or the tower card, right? So, tower has always been the one that has bothered me the most, and because it's about fear, and fear is the number one emotion that throughout my ascension journey, my whole life, it's the number one negative emotion that I've had to deal with. A lot for others, it's anger. For others, it's jealousy. For others, it's grief, right? But for me, it's been fear. So that's why the tower card kind of hits that pain point for me. Um, but also like which cards, do you feel like really comfortable with? Like I don't know, I feel super comfortable with the Fool card, which is adventure and journeying, right? Because I love to adventure, I love to travel. So that's a fun little thing. All cards have meanings, and the meanings are completely dependent on the querent, the query, and surrounding cards. Ultimately, your intuition should trump logic. Okay. Always intuition trumps over logic. All is open for interpretation. Reverse cards, reverse cards is the reversal of the upright meaning, or can be what you're lacking or you need, or a worse outcome of upright cards, or a delayed outcome of upright cards, or you're missing something or a blind spot. Tarot can be used in spell work, and I use it a lot in spell work. Okay. For example, the 9 or 10 pentacles for abundance spells, the Ace of Swords for communication spells. Uh, there's so many good spell books. But one is 365 tarot spells by Sasha Graham. And you can let me know if you'd like to purchase my Intro to Candle Moon Magic course as well. And actually, I've updated that. It's now called Witchcraft 101 if you want to learn how to do spell work and how to use the tarot in your spell work. Don't become over reliant on the deck. Ultimately, you have your free will. Okay. That's one thing I learned, like at a certain point in my life. I think I had become over reliant on the tarot, trying to use it for every little thing and trying to use it to relieve my anxiety about what I was going through. And ultimately, it kind of backfired because I would just be drawing the tower and the death uh, and the devil card over and over again. It was ultimately all just illusion. It was just my own fear kind of expressing through my fingers and into the cards, and it led me off track. And then I'd be reading, multiple times for the same question. Like I, warned you guys before. That's how I learned the hard way not to do that, because it would just, get mumbo jumbo answers in the end. The tarot is only predicting a likely future timeline for future readings. Many timelines are possible, and oftentimes we change timelines. However, that being said, and that's the answer as to why sometimes, like, there's a couple of answers as to why you do a draw on something and it ultimately it doesn't pan out the way you had, drawn it. Okay, one is that you just basically, as I said, your emotions that were at the forefront of your conscious mind, and your, let's say biases, because that can affect. If you have a strong bias, just like with any psychic tool, towards what the answer is going to be, that absolutely can color and cause issues with the accuracy of the final reading. So your biases, your emotions messed it up, or it was that that the cards themselves were the right cards that came out, and you were reading either what was going to happen next but not the final outcome, or you were reading the final outcome but not what was going to happen next, or because you made a decision, or whoever you're reading for made a decision afterwards that, let's say, it wasn't what was kind of originally it wasn't what they were planning on doing in their head when when you did the draw. Well, you could say that, okay, the timeline's changed, and that's why the outcome didn't really match what the cards are saying. But actually, I will say the more experience I get with this, I do find that more often than not, it's not about actually in reality like timelines have changed or that the reading wasn't good. It's that it's showing an outcome a little bit further in the future. So it's a just wait ... just wait ... and then ultimately what you were seeing ends up playing out, but it was just later on. It was just later on. Accuracy is very important, and I don't think this is maybe discussed enough, but accuracy to me, I think is paramount. Because if we're not, being accurate, I don't think we're being very good at our jobs as psychics or readers. So you should be, periodically evaluating yourself for accuracy and also others. If you have a tarot reader or a psychic that you're going to recurringly, and they're just like uh, always wrong or just always missing the boat, like you should maybe evaluate that, and maybe they're not as talented as others, right? So I put a lot of stock into accuracy, and I really pride myself on being as accurate as I possibly can. And be patient, as the more you practice, the more accurate you'll become. And I talked about the tarot opening a portal to the unconscious mind and ultimately the Akashic records. Okay, queries. I mentioned a little bit of this before, but be specific, okay? Be as specific and as intentional as you possibly can with your queries to the deck. The query is important, okay? The deck can be very literal, can sometimes be very cheeky. As I said, common examples like when you're looking for a lost item, and sometimes it can show you more than what you asked for. It is your own entity, your friend. You are the medium between the deck and the world. So tell the deck what you want. I like to ask 3 times while I'm shuffling. So this is and I'm just going to show the minor arcana portion of the deck right now. So this is my protocol. Okay, is I first of all doing this 3 times. Okay, you're tapping like half of the deck against each other thrice. That clears the energy of the deck. Okay. Then as I'm shuffling, I'm asking the query, okay, show me what I need to know about my next week. What do I need to know about this coming week in my life, right? And then just use your intuition. And when you feel, maybe you hear in your head stop or see a stop sign, or just use your intuition, just feel into it and stop. Okay. And then I do with my non dominant hand, I do a cut, and you just use your intuition wherever you feel called to cut, and then you got the right cards. So it's always the right cards, no matter because a lot of times people have the illusion like, oh, I felt like I was supposed to stop shuffling, 10 seconds before I actually did. It doesn't matter. The universe is way too wise for that. You're going to get the right cards that are going to show you what you need to know no matter what. It's counterintuitive, it's illogical, but we have to, understand, and we have to be comfortable with and give credence to the fact that in a way the tarot is illogical. It's super logical, right? Meaning above logic, right? Not very logical, meaning above logic, where it's it's coming from, there's a higher design. Just like in life, there's a higher design to everything, all events that occur. In the context of the tarot, there's a higher design to the cards that come out, and they're always the right cards. As I said, unless you get this feeling like, I was really emotional. And in another sense, even if you were really like fearful and you were drawing cards, well, in a sense, it was the right cards because it was reflecting that fear back to you so that you can, work with that. And so you can work with that and see, okay, how can I, abate that? How can I move on from this fear, right? How can I think of this in a more enlightened way, right? So tell the deck what you want, okay? And here are just some good kind of query prompts. Okay, give me a message about blank. Tell me the likely outcome if I choose this or they choose this. What is likely to happen? Put in a time, an event, if this decision is made. Card of the day. One of the things I have everyone do in the 15-week course is draw a card of the day every day. Helps you get acquainted with the cards, and also the card of the day will have an important message for you for that day. Okay, what will be the theme for the next month for me? You can ask how someone views you. How do they see you? How can you improve? If nothing changes, and this is something that I will sometimes use in the query. If nothing changed, and this goes along with the idea of like the timelines can change, right? So if nothing changes, what will happen with this situation, right? What do I need to know about this situation? Give me an overview of this situation. How to shuffle or pick the cards, okay? I showed you how I shuffle. Um, Take note of how the cards fall out, of cards that fall out. So if you're shuffling and one or two cards fall out, I always put those cards aside. Let's say I'm shuffling and a card pops out. It happens again because there's a higher intelligence at work here. Put that card aside because although it may not be part of the spread per se, there's something you need to be aware of. Okay. There's something about that card that ties in with the reading. Okay. Cutting the deck, as I said. And also, if you're doing a reading for others, for someone else that's in front of you, fun thing to do, have them touch all the cards with their left or non-intuitive hand, have them knock on the cards 3 times with their non-intuitive hand. Okay. And then have them, after you shuffle, have them, their intuitive hand, which is the non-dominant hand, use their intuition and cut the deck where they feel called to. And as I said, the clarifier tiebreaker key card is the card on the back of the deck. Not going to go super into that today, but just briefly, it provides clarity. It provides coloring to the rest of the reading. Other methods, okay, some readers to this day, they'll spread the cards out on the table as a fan, and they'll say, okay, pick 3 cards or pick 5 cards, or doing the Celtic cross, you're going to pick, 10 or 11 cards. So you can do that. And if you're not good at shuffling, it's not a bad idea. Also, another more advanced thing you can do is like you can just, after you shuffle and after you cut the deck, you can then divide the deck into 3 kind of somewhat equal piles, and then it'll represent past, present, future. So you pick one from the past, then one from the present, one from the future. Maybe you decide you want to do 3 cards each. Now, you want to decide in advance what spread you're doing, and you can say it out loud. I will usually say it out loud. For example, one very common spread I do is a 9-card past, present, future spread for relationships. So I'll state it very clearly out loud. I'm doing a 9-card past, present, future spread. And that way, like, it's clear on all levels of my consciousness, what the structure of the reading is. If I'm just doing kind of what I normally do, which is just laying cards out until I don't feel called to lay them out anymore, then I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll just use my intuition. But because I use that method anyways, it's like all levels of my consciousness, my mind know that's how I do it, and that I just go until my intuition says to stop. I don't think we got. I think that's a later slide, hierarchy of cards. So we'll get there, Dana. Also, what was the other question? In the moment, can you get clarification for timeline involved? Clarifying card is something you mentioned. Days of the week. Timing cards are a thing. Yes, you can have, and that's something I do all the time. Is if I'm reading something in the future, I will absolutely, sometimes say, okay, what is the timing on this? And I will draw a card particularly meant to give me clarity on the timing. It's a more advanced thing to interpret timing through the cards, but it is doable. So I do teach that towards the end of the 15-week course. So the outline of the deck and the hierarchy of it, you have the major arcana. The major arcana cards are the strongest, okay? These are the trump cards. So you have 0, which is the Fool. The Fool represents the querent himself or themselves, right? That goes on the journey of the Fool's journey through the major arcana, which we're going to go over shortly. And then in some decks, rare decks, but there are a few that do depict the Fool as being number 22, because the Fool represents both the beginning and the ending of a journey. And it's the 0 point, because when we get to the World card, which is number 21, that is where we could say you've either completed the soul's journey, which is the Fool's journey is the soul's journey in human form. You could say you either completed it and you've ascended to the next level, or you're going to go back and reincarnate again and try again. And that's the Fool being number 22. So the major arcana cards are the trump cards. They carry more weight. There's 4 suits, just as in playing cards, representing the 4 elements. And the magician represents ether, because which is the 5th element, right? In the pentagram, you have 5. Pentagram is 5 angles, right? And the magician card represents ether, because it's taking the energy of spirit, which is what's represented by the magician reaching with his wand into the spirit world. It's taking that ether energy and then using the elements to create whatever you want to create in this life. And the magician card is very much about creating with the will, or creating with one's skill or expertise. And so cups representing water, pentacles representing earth, swords representing air, and wands representing fire. So your 4 suits are swords, wands, pentacles, and cups. Now, the order of them we would refer to astrology. So each suit is, of course, ruled by an element, right? The beginning of the astrological year is fire, because Aries, which we just talked about the Aries full moon, Aries is the initiating sign of the zodiac, right? Aries is the initiating spark that carries the energy then around the zodiac wheel. So Aries being that initiating spark, and being the first sign, we could say is the first suit of the minor arcana, we could say is wands. Okay. Then what is the second season is summer, and summer is initiated by Cancer. Cancer is the cardinal sign of summer. So cups would be the second suit. Autumn is, and this is all northern hemisphere, of course. Autumn is initiated by Libra, as we're in Libra season now, which is cardinal air. So the third suit is going to be swords. And the final suit, Capricorn, is the initiator of winter as cardinal earth. And so pentacles are the final suit. So the order, again, is fire, which is wands, water, which is cups, swords, which is air, and then earth, which is pentacles. And you could say that the feminine signs, right? The feminine elements are earth and water. So the feminine suits are pentacles and cups. Cups has to do with relationships. Pentacles has to do with the earth itself, and also more prominently money. That's, pentacles means coins. And then the masculine suits are fire, which mainly has to do with action and creating and work, and swords, which has to do with communication, and also violence, and the idea of the sword being used as a weapon. So that's the general outline. Okay. And then the pip cards, PIP, are 1 through 10 in the minor arcana suit. So here's the 5, that's a pip card. The 7, that's a pip card. This is the 9 of cups, that's a pip card. And then the court cards are the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. So these are characters in the Fool's Journey, but also, they're based on medieval times. So the king is at the top of the hierarchy because it's medieval times are very patriarchal. Underneath that is the queen. Underneath that is the knight. Underneath that is the page. You can also think of like a chessboard as well for reference, right? But the court cards represent characters. So essentially, the tarot itself is the journey of life. Okay, the major arcana and the journey from the Fool is the character, right? Think about like playing the game of life, like the actual piece that navigates the board, the game board. That's the Fool. Okay. Now, the major events that occur in the game of life, that's the major arcana 1 through 21. The minor events that color the game of life are represented by the pip cards 1 through 10 in the minor arcana. The characters that one encounters along the way that one has soul contracts with are represented by the court cards. Make sense? So in order of influence, as someone asked, major arcana are the trump cards. Underneath that are court cards. Underneath that are pip cards. Okay. Major, court, pip. All right. Reverse cards have different meanings. So not all readers, FYI, if you weren't aware, read reversals. I always have and always will. It's, I think, as I said, it just adds so much more color to your readings because now you've expanded the deck in essence to include 156 cards rather than just 78. So for me, it's a really important expansion of the deck. And it just adds so much more realism and so much more specificity and clarity to your readings when you do reversals, because it's a completely different meaning. As I said, with the exception of the Sun card, which sometimes the meaning can be somewhat similar, it's completely different. Like here's the Eight of Cups. Eight of Cups upright is going to be about either taking a journey or about moving on from a difficult situation or making a powerful, important decision that you're creating something new, starting a new business. And reversed is going to be staying put. It's going to literally be the opposite, meaning. It's going to be staying put, not moving on, staying stuck, right? So that's why reversals are so helpful, because they provide so much more clarity. The images on the cards represent the themes in all of humanity's unconscious mind. So the iceberg under the ocean, the unconscious mind, right? So even if you don't understand the elements of the card, okay, the symbols of the card, they speak to your subconscious because they're a common experience for all humans. Like the pool of experience of the human experience, be it in this lifetime, be it in other lifetimes, and we can pool all that together. But the Earth experience in particular, and I'm not talking about experiences on other planets, right? The Earth experience, which we all share because we're all here, there's symbols that are ubiquitous, whether consciously or unconsciously. The symbols of the sun and the moon, right? The symbols of the infinity sign, the symbols of a robe, the colors that I discussed before, the symbols of a work table, the symbol of a throne, symbol of family, the symbol of a home, the symbol of a rainbow, right? So whether we consciously understand the cards or not, it's okay, because there is, while we're learning, before we learn, I mean, if you've ever, just done a reading for yourself without really knowing, anything or very little about the cards, or you just kind of were going off of what Google said, or, you had someone else do a reading for you, the symbols will still speak to a part of your mind, even if you're not consciously having an understanding of what they mean. So let's talk about the Fool's Journey. Okay. So I'm going to take you on the Fool's Journey through the major arcana. All right. And the Fool's Journey is the soul's journey. It's the journey of life. It is so helpful in understanding what the Fool's Journey is, because it just helps you to understand life. And we're going to do some tapping as well on the Fool's Journey to help us just heal different aspects of our lives through the context of understanding the tarot. So we start with the Fool. As I said, the Fool is the Querent himself or themselves. And the Fool is intentionally androgynous, by the way. It's neither, he's neither he, she, they is not, really it's they, is neither male nor female. Okay. So, and, by the way, it's like people have this, for whatever warped reasons, they have these ideas that like transgenderism or gender neutrality or the, reality that there are way more than two genders or hermaphrodites or asexuals, or like, all the range of the rainbow that one can be with their gender and their sexual expression. The tarot is rooted in the 15th century. The Fool is a they. The World card, if you didn't know, is a hermaphrodite. Okay? The World card has always been, since the early days, since the 15th century, a hermaphrodite. So people think that like it's a novel 21st century concept that there's more than two genders. It's not. Okay, that's just an aside. But the Fool is the querent. The Fool is the one going on the journey themselves, and also represents the beginning of the journey. And this represents the soul coming into human form. This represents birth. Immediately after birth, the first step for the soul, now in human form, is to meet the magician. And the magician, which represents the intellect and the left brain and the logical side of things, the yang, yang, the masculine energies, right? By coming across this energy. And also the magician represents the Fool's spiritual father, okay? The spiritual father. And the Fool learns how to really co-create with spirit, because this is the card of co-creation. The wand going up into the sky, like the Statue of Liberty, is representing bringing the spiritual energy down. And then the other hand pointing to the earth is representing bringing that to the earth. And then working with the elements on the table to craft something into the 3D reality. So the magician represents the spiritual father, and learning one's power to create. Next, number 2, we have the high priestess, which is the spiritual mother, and that is intuition, the right brain, the divine feminine, the yin, the unconscious mind, the potential. So the Fool learns how to use the right brain, how to use the intuition through the spiritual mother. So we could say the spiritual father and the spiritual mother are concepts. They're the left brain and the right brain. Now, after learning the concepts of the left and right brain and beginning to use both, the Fool then meets the earthly parents. So we could say that the Fool then, of course, first meets the mother, because the Fool is born through the mother's womb, okay? And the Fool feels the nurturance of the feminine. Next, the Fool encounters the earthly father, the emperor. And through this character, the Fool, the emperor represents structure and authority. The Fool learns that their will is not the only way, that society and life has structure and rules, okay? Early on in one's life as an infant, learning that, you must stay in the crib because it's the rules. And just the structure of the walls of the crib itself as well. Next, the Fool ventures into the world and learns about the structures, conventions, and rules of society. And this is represented by the Hierophant card. The Hierophant card represents the law, religion, and mores. So here is the Hierophant. As I showed before. Okay. So it really is, showing the symbol of the church, with it being the Pope. But it represents all rules, laws, mores in general. So the Fool, as the child, now learns that there are rules to life, not just rules within the context of the family, but rules in a society. The Fool then reaches puberty and desires for sexual and romantic union. And this is represented by the Lover's card. The Lover's card represents that first love, that first romance in the journey of life. After experiencing union, the Fool then experiences mastership over themselves, becoming successful in the world. Okay, and not spiritual mastership, but more like skillful mastership, and they experience success in the world, and this is represented by the Chariot card. The Chariot is the crowning achievement of the ego self, and we could say from then on, the main feature of the soul's journey is the spiritual side of things. So you can see how it's building, and like you can think of like different stages of life. As to the lovers, this is like the first love, teenage love, and then this is like 20s, in one's 20s, early 30s, building in the world, building a life of success in the world. Life then begins to present the fool with challenges. Okay, so many of the lessons we learn, the soul lessons we learn in a physical life, are around obstacles and challenges, and this is represented by the Strength card. Later in life, the fool, having accomplished many things and overcome many challenges, seeks out the why. And all of us that are doing stuff like this, all of you here on Ascending as One, right? Inevitably, you have sought out the why. Why this? Why this? Why this? Right? And the why is represented by the Hermit card, right? Trying to understand the deeper meanings behind life itself, behind the events in your life, behind your relationships, behind your challenges. This is the realm of number 9. The Hermit. And the Hermit can also represent a wise teacher coming along in the Fool's journey as well. Because all of you, whether it's me or someone else, you've had an important teacher come along at a certain portion of your journey. And at this point, the Fool gets introspective and seeks out knowledge and wisdom over anything else, right? At this point in the Fool's journey, the idea of wisdom is much more valuable than like the Chariot card, which is just achievement. And ultimately, if you haven't figured it out, the currency that you take with you between lifetimes and through lifetimes is wisdom. The currency you do not take with you is paper money, money in your bank account, etc. That you can't take with you. You do take wisdom with you. Right? After death, we're still conscious. And we are already taking the wisdom that we've learned with us. So that transition from the Chariot and Strength, which is about the ego self, to the Hermit, right? This journey from 7, 8, 9. This is the journey to understanding that wisdom is actually the most valuable currency. Carrie, as I said before, the court cards represent characters, but so this is just the general Fool's journey. But, in your own life, you can think of who were the most important characters. Pages are young people, teenagers, 20s. Knights are going to be like people in their 30s, 40s usually. And then king and queens will be usually 40s, 50s, and older. And of course, kings will be men, queens will be women, knights will be men. It's a bit distorted, as you see. It's patriarchal. Pages can be either boys or girls or men or women. But you can think about in the context of your own life, if you were to make a very long list of all of the most influential people in your life, right? Those would be represented if you were to map out your soul's journey through the Fool's journey, the major arcana. Those would be the most important people, characters that played roles in your life. The Fool, after introspection, sees how everything connects and understands the wheel of karma better, right? So the Wheel of Fortune, one of the meanings of the Wheel of Fortune is that it represents the wheel of karma. Okay, that all actions have consequences, whether they be good or bad. And it's a turning point as well. Okay, this is the midpoint of the Fool's journey, the Wheel of Fortune card. So at this turning point, this is when the Fool decides to return to the world and make a positive difference, because the Fool now understands karma. And karma, the fool will understand even further in the next card, which is the justice card. And I have a note here because one of the fun things I like to do in the 15-week course is to have you watch Groundhog Day by Bill Murray, or the Bill Murray movie. Because it is, if you didn't know, that movie is based off of the Major Arcana. It's based off of exactly what I'm teaching right now. It's based off of the Fool's Journey through the Major Arcana. So, the turning point after, over and over, Phil, the protagonist, is trying to end his own life, and he's miserable because up until that point, the only thing he's known is service to self and trying to, get enjoyment out of the material things in life and trying to, accumulate things and power, right, and influence. And all of it is vapid. Ultimately, all of it, Rita being the secondary character in that movie, coming in and representing the Empress card, right, representing the nurturing mother, representing the lover's card, his love interest, representing the hermit in a way as well, a wise teacher. And she comes in, and because he sees the peace in her and the fulfillment that she experiences despite not having the material success or influence that he has, he becomes so inspired by that he wants to become like her, right? And that's what leads him back into the world to make a difference, which is, the turning point of that is the Wheel of Fortune card. In the Justice card, now starting to understand karma, that all things have consequences, the Fool now takes responsibility for past actions. That taking responsibility, the Fool wants to make amends, right? The Justice card is Libra. It's about balance, and it's about coming to I think the best way to describe it, coming to a place of balance with our karma, where we're acknowledging the bad things we've done and making amends for them, and we're committing to creating a good influence, good karmas for the world, right? Number 12, now the Hanged Man card. Okay, this is when the Fool, we could say, meets their personal cross, and you can see that the Hanged Man card. I have to kind of dig it out. I didn't separate that one, but it looks like the Hanged Man is hanging from a cross. So there's that metaphor of it being the personal cross. Despite having dealt with their karma and understanding karma, they still don't feel fulfilled. And they feel and they still are trying to figure it out, and they need to look at life from a different direction. So you can see with the Hanged Man card, okay, you're looking at life upside down. Okay. The Hanged Man upright is the man hanging upside down. So you're looking from a totally different perspective. And there's also a surrender aspect. You can see that the Hanged Man is not moving. He's just hanging there, right? And that's by design. You could also say that their world's been turned upside down by this whole spiritual journey, as all of us have experienced, right? The spiritual journey is upheaving everything and turning your whole world upside down. And through this, it becomes an opportunity to surrender to the will of the universe. And that's the main lesson of the Hanged Man, is surrendering to the will of the universe. The Fool, now understanding this, makes a huge change, sheds old skin, feels like they're dying in a new way. Number 13, of course, right? Friday the 13th, 13 being, because 13 in a lot of religions represents death, right? So 13 is the death card. And the death card is rarely about physical death, but it is. I mean, it absolutely, and it will come up with it. What scares people about the tarot, they're like, oh my God, if the death card comes out, it means I'm going to die. It like almost always doesn't. But if you're reading about someone who's sick with cancer and the death card comes up, well, right? But for the most part, the death card is representing, and even in that case, it doesn't have to necessarily be, because in most cases, the death card is representing change. It's representing transformational, fundamental change. Okay, and generally, the change is force, right? It's the universe's will coming in. The Grim Reaper, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, being an aspect of the universe coming in to shake our world up because our soul needs us to change, and we're, as the ego self, being stubborn about it, right? So the fool now with number 13 makes a huge change, sheds old skin, feels like they're dying in a way, experiencing transformation. This is the death card. The fool, having let go of previous baggage, now experiences balance like never before. After making this big change and shift in their life, they are finally experiencing a sense of balance like never before, and it feels great. So the temperance card is that first place in the journey where the querent, the fool, the experiencer is actually feeling a sense of peace. Before this, there's peace has been fleeting. Maybe it's come in moments of triumph, like the Chariot card, or it's come in moments of romantic union, like in the Lovers card, right? But this is the first kind of like permanent sense of peace that's experienced. So you can see that one of the best cards in the Major Arcana, the Temperance card, comes off the heels of one of the most difficult cards, because the Death card is about almost always it's uncomfortable transformation, right? You would have rather not had to go through it, but it's necessary. Just like a lobster shedding its shell, or a crab shedding its shell, or a snake shedding its skin. It's uncomfortable to get that, wiggle that shell off, but it's necessary in order to experience a new sense of balance. But the ego is not dead yet. And ultimately, of course, we don't actually kill the ego. The ego is something that's integrated into the more enlightened, higher vibrational aspect of self, being the soul self. But the temptations of the world come back. And this is all of us, including myself. We all go through this, right? Or maybe we're at a sense of balance, and maybe we take that for granted, and we allow the temptations of the world to creep back in. There's nothing wrong with alcohol or tobacco or sex or gambling on the surface. It's all about how we use it, right? But these are the sorts of stuff that might come creeping up, tempt us, the devil being the great tempter. And so the fool is tempted by the calls of the devil, right? How like appropriate now with the nighttime setting in, right? and a Scorpio season on its way. But and the fool, explores this, right? And also, like, this card represents the helplessness that all of us feel on some level of our beingness, of just being a physical being that is, first of all, like, so easily able to fall into the whims of fancy of the next shiny thing in front of us, right? This is why addiction is something that almost every human being goes through in one way or another in every life, right? Whether it's addiction to physical things or behaviors or beliefs, right? Or people. But not only that, but also the devil, representing just being a small human, physical human in this great big world of spirit, right? And ultimately, we are spirit, of course, just playing human. But if we aren't really fundamentally feeling that, it can seem more like this, right? If we're fundamentally feeling our power, we're in the Magician card. If we're not, we're feeling the disempowerment that, to be honest, most of the world feels like most of the time. This is one of the reasons why religion is a thing, because people go to church on Sunday and they feel momentarily that sense of power and connection. But then, shortly after, they might regress back into feeling like this, that underlying helplessness. That's a feature of being human. Well, after the temptations of the world come back, the fool experiences the final fall, and this is the Tower card. Life comes crashing down onto them like a tower imploding or coming down. And this tower event, right? It's something kind of, it's a term we use in the tarot world, like a tower card event or a tower event. This tower event that occurs actually frees the Fool from the ties, the binds that they had unwittingly created through the material world explorations of the Devil card. So the Tower card says, boom, right? It comes and, all in one fell swoop. And the Tower card, the difference between the Death and the Tower card is the Tower card is ruled by Uranus. It's sudden, it's unexpected. The Death card, the change sometimes can be somewhat anticipated, but it's very deep and fundamental. The Death card is ruled by Pluto. So Tower is about swift change. It's a hurricane coming through and destroying, or a tornado, right? Or a car crash, or a sudden death that occurs. It's unexpected and it's traumatic, right? But in the soul's journey, a lot of times, if not always, when it's happening, it's because we've built these binding ties to places, to people, to roles we're playing, to belief systems, to substance, whatever. And we need a correction. We need a course correction to get on with our life plan. Because we, for especially those of us on a spiritual journey, like a conscious spiritual journey, we didn't plan to stay stuck for too long in any particular thing that we have to go through in our life. So the Tower card comes along and shakes up our world so we can release these chains, can break apart and be released. Okay. So the Tower card is a necessary part of the experience of life. And also, by the way, the lightning bolt at the top of the tower, which is going into the crown, representing the crown chakra, that represents revelation. So sudden insight, sudden insight around something crucial, sudden wisdom that is gained through a traumatic experience. By the way, there are rare instances, and this is where your intuition comes into play, where in a reading, like actually it literally is just talking about the wisdom aspect and it's not actually about any traumatic experience or anything. After the calamity and the upheaval of the Tower card, well, now the Fool enters into a period of peace, self-healing, having now been freed from the devil's ties, experiencing a peace like never before, an even deeper peace than the Temperance card, we could say. Because, the type of peace, and think back to your own experience of life, the type of peace you experience after you've been through a lot of shit and you've learned from it, on the other side of that, right, is so much more powerful in a way than the peace that you experienced when things were better, right? And that's what the Star card is. It's like you've been through a lot with the Tower card. On the other side of that, here's the Star card. And the Star card is that period of peace and self-healing. Finding faith and trust in God and the universe, being hopeful, inspired, and present. Basking in the peace and inspiration of the Star, the Fool kind of forgets reality. Again, the ego's not gone and becomes embroiled in illusion. And the Moon card represents illusion, number 19. Fears come to the surface. The Fool must face their fears. As I wrote about and spoke about in the Aries Supermoon article podcast, we as a rule must face all fears in this life, all, A-L-L, all fears before we can actually truly ascend spiritually. And the Moon represents fears and facing those fears. After we faced our fears, the Fool comes back into reality, back into the light of the sun. The sun, we could say, also, illuminates, just like every moon. Every full moon is a 180-degree opposition between the sun and the moon, and the light of the sun is illuminating the light of the moon, showing everything that we need to know, everything that's been hidden, showing it right out, right out in front, clear as day. So we could say the sun illuminates the fool's fears so they can be released. The fool, having released their fear, faced their fears, released them, feels now on top of the world, okay? The child on top of the horse, waving the flag of joy underneath the loving and caring and bright sun. And reborn, cleansed from, reborn on top of the world, the soul self radiating through. Okay, the sun representing that soul self radiating through the innocence of the inner child. And, one way of looking at the spiritual journey is that it is a journey to innocence. It's a journey back to innocence, right? As we're going through the spiritual journey, we become more and more empathic, more and more sensitive, right? We become more childlike in a lot of ways. We become more honest and raw with our emotional experience. And it's because we're letting go of layers of ego that we've carried with us throughout lifetimes. And so this sun card here, representing the soul self radiating through, being on top of the world, and this being the most pleasurable and comfortable experience of life. The fool feels reborn, completely cleansed for past sins. And the judgment card is this reflection on life and death, contemplating death and reincarnation. The trumpet call. Now, in readings, a lot of times the judgment card will represent opportunity. Okay. The angels sounding the trumpets of opportunity. But in the context of the fool's journey, it's about life and death. It's about reincarnation. It's about contemplating the big questions at the end of life. And finally, as I mentioned before, the journey concludes with the world. And the world card is about the completion, the fulfillment. In readings, a lot of times the world card will be representing the completion of something or the fulfillment of something. And the world card really has two tracks. Okay, one track, the fool re-enters the world as their most ascended self. This is the culmination, success, the bodhisattva consciousness, right? So this is ascension, right? Or the fool didn't complete all of their soul lessons, which is the most common track, of course, right? We're in a reincarnation cycle. And what comes next? Number 22/0, the fool. And the reincarnation cycle starts all over again. So, any questions or comments about the fool's journey? The fool's journey is the journey of the soul itself in a physical body. It's so fun. And again, the rest of the deck, in this context, the minor arcana cards 1 through 10 are the more minor experiences, less impactful experiences that color life. And then the court cards are the important characters that we have soul contracts with that we meet along the way. Now, this is just the fool's journey, right? So this is understanding the spiritual, journey through the cards, but it's a whole nother thing to actually learn the practical application. And I did give you some of it here, but the practical application of the major arcana cards, and then the practical application of the other, 52 minor arcana cards. And then that all comes into 56. That all comes into the totality of, and then you learn reversals, and you got 156. The totality of using the tarot cards themselves to understand, to forecast, to interpret, so on and so forth. Sylvia asked, so if we were to possess just one deck of cards, does it need to be any particular one? No, not at all. But just understand that there is a difference between tarot and oracle cards, right? Tarot cards have 78. If it doesn't have 78 cards, it's not tarot. So understand that. And just a little timing period of the fool's journey. The fool through the chariot, as I said, is childhood, teen years, early 20s, discovering their story. Strength through temperances are the challenges and lessons of adulthood. And then the devil to the world is more about redemption, late adulthood, old age, and reincarnation or ascension. So let's do a little exercise now. Okay. I want you to go through the major arcana cards, 0 through 22, and I want you to look at each card, okay? Study each card. And if you don't have your cards, I'd recommend just Googling like major arcana, and you can kind of click through the cards. Which cards, like try to pick two or three, do you feel most comfortable with? Like feels like the real you, the highest vibrational version of you. And which cards trigger you? Because this will show your shadow or what is yet unresolved. So I want you to take a few minutes and feel into this, and then we'll have some people share. Ta-da! Back in my office here. One of my offices. The one you guys are used to recently. Diana says, I love how you describe the fool's journey, and my understanding of the spiritual journey is about reclaiming the power of our innocence through integrating the fractured aspects of our soul, which is represented through the different cards. Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Beautiful. Carrie says, the star and the moon confused me. She's pouring water. Okay. That's the water bearer, which is Aquarius. What do the dogs see? So this is where, I'm not going to really go into this today, but if you go on and want to do the full 15-week course with me and a lot of others, we'll go into every single, and I'm not joking, every single symbol. Like, for example, look at the death card. There's about 30 or 40 different symbols. We'll go into every single one of every card. Again, that's why it's a 15-week course. But I mean, the dogs are representing the primal instincts, which, fear is the amygdala in the reptilian brain and the primal instincts. Don't like the Hierophant at all. Okay, now the Hierophant, if that's triggering, probably something around religion, I would guess. Or just like kind of conservative mores that may. I wonder if you grew up in a family that had a lot of rules or was stern or orderly or just kind of like, even boring. That could be why. Because the Hierophant is the boring, stern, orderly, not fun. It's like the Hierophant card is like, in school when you got to walk in an orderly line for a fire drill. It's the pastor giving a sermon or the rabbi giving a sermon. It's Sunday school. It's the mundane. Wendy says 3 cards really grabbed your attention: Star, Moon, and the World. Yeah, those are some of my favorites as well. Beautiful. Lisa says most comfortable, the Magician. Good. High Priestess and Star. Triggering cards, Emperor and Judgment. If you're triggered by the Emperor, there's probably a male figure in your life that either abused you or harmed you verbally or physically or otherwise, or getting caught up in issues with the law, or being in the military and having a bad experience, or just having like a very stern father, or even not having a father, that as well, or having a father who was absent, because then there's that lack of that Emperor card. The Judgment card, that can be about like decisions, like feeling like you like having guilt over a particular decision, or feeling, or just guilt in general, like whether it came from religion. Tower cards feel scary and worse if reversed. Tower card reverse is going to be more about avoiding tragedy or avoiding the worst possible outcome. It can also be a long, drawn out calamity, like what those of you in Asheville are going through right now. Recovering from Hurricane Helene. That's like the Tower card reversed. The hurricane itself was the Tower card. The floods all happen, in a day, right? Over a period of what, a day and a half or so. That's the Tower card upright, but then the Tower card reverse is the cleanup that's going to take like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And I know that because Hurricane Sandy, out here, I mean, not that I live here, but, so many of my friends and family, I grew up in Long Island, right? And I was in Hurricane Sandy as a amateur hurricane hunter, actually. That's a story for another day, but it took like some places 8 years to rebuild from Sandy, and Helene's just as destructive as that was, if not more in certain ways. And that's the Tower card reverse. So, Rachel, it could be like either from this life or another life, a long drawn out calamity that just like wouldn't resolve or took forever to improve, or the fear of that for some reason, maybe based on past lives. The Tower is about, fear, especially fear of just something taking your joy, taking your freedom, taking your things, taking from you, taking. The Star card could be unease around sexuality, because there, it is one aspect of, like, every aspect of every card is relevant. So it's relevant that the woman is naked. Judgment card triggering. Yeah, very fascinating. Great. Thanks for sharing, everybody. So if you're watching this on the New Earth One Network, I want to invite you to learn the tarot with myself and students from all around the world. Whether you've never touched the cards before, whether you're somewhat of a novice with the cards, whether you think you're intermediate, even if you're advanced, this course is going to take you from where you're at to becoming, if you want to be a professional, and if not, just having the tarot as an incredible friend, a tool to have with you for the rest of your life. The value of learning the tarot is absolutely immeasurable. And speaking of value, I'd like to invite you, the New Earth One Network viewer, to save 20%, an exclusive discount for New Earth One viewers. Save 20% on the tarot course. You don't even have to put in a coupon code. Just go to the link in the description box and register. There's 2 payment options available for your convenience as well. Again, normally $6.99, 20% discount only for New Earth One Network viewers, down to just $5.59. The comprehensive tarot course begins Sunday, November 10th. Sunday, November 10th is class number 1, and we are going to go all the way through the winter, all the way through springtime into June. June 8th will be graduation day, but there's no requirement even to finish by June 8th.
If you want to navigate the course on your own, watch more of the replays rather than doing the live calls, it's totally fine. Just email me whenever you're finished watching the classes. And you don't even have to watch all 15 if you don't want to. I just require that people watch at least 2/3 of the classes, but I definitely recommend doing all 15 if you can. But I will still graduate you as long as you watch at least 10 and you can demonstrate to me that you've learned how to read the tarot. So we go all the way through June, but there's no time limit to finish. You get a certification showing you the number of hours of tarot study under me, which you can put on your wall. It's a beautiful certificate. 45 plus hours of study if you do all the classes, which I highly recommend. A 45-minute personal reading with me where you can ask me literally anything and we'll do some tarot reading to help you understand the tarot and to help you understand your life. Remember, Q&A at the end of each call, an opportunity to practice readings for the group. A lot of practice time, especially in weeks 14 and 15. The curriculum, November 10th, again, is the only Sunday class, Tarot Basics and Intro to Major Arcana. And then we go into the Major Arcana. Then we go to Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, Timing Card Spreads and Advanced Techniques, and then Refinement, Practice, and Graduation for weeks 14 and 15. All classes, if you want to do the live classes, which I highly recommend, they're on Zoom, and they're really easy to access. There's no password required. Just click the link. They're 4 p.m. New York time, 4 p.m. New York time, except for weeks 2, 3, 5, 10, and 12, which are 2 p.m. New York time, 2 p.m. New York time for those. And remember, you can stream and or download the recordings right afterward for your convenience, okay? So if you can't make the entire call, you can only make for the first hour, the last hour, you can right after go ahead and stream at your convenience the rest of the class. If you have any questions about the class, and please read what people that have experienced my teachings in the past have wrote about me, I want you to email me directly. YouAreADivineHuman@gmail.com. You can see the email on the screen right now. YouAreADivineHuman@gmail.com. Okay, I'm happy to answer any of your questions about the tarot course. I'm happy to do a free consultation as well to see if the course is right for you. But we start November 10th. And that being said, if you want to join in after November 10th, if you're seeing this after November 10th and you want to join in for the second class or the third class, etc., feel free. There's a nice break between weeks 1 and 2. So if you want to come in late, that's totally fine. And as I said, you're welcome to navigate the course at your own pace anyway. So you can come in at any time. And this deal for New Earth One Network viewers only, again, 20% off. What a value. So take advantage of this. The link is in the description box below. And hey, you, if you've been thinking of doing something new in your life, if you've been thinking of maybe doing a new class, maybe taking on a new endeavor, maybe even a new career, if you have a willingness to put in the work, to learn the tarot, if you want to learn the tarot along with students from all around the world, if you want to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity, if you want to see the fruits of your labor when you graduate, if you want to have that certificate on the wall after you graduate, showing that you've completed the course, and you want to become a master tarot reader yourself, and maybe even teach it to others in the future as well, then take that leap, sign up right now for my comprehensive tarot reading course. Act quickly because we start November 10th. But as I said, there's no time limit if you want to jump in late. Taking this course could even earn you a full-time living after you graduate if you want to go professional. If you have any questions about the class, email me right away. Email me. All right, everyone, I hope to hear from you, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you on the 2024-25 Comprehensive Tarot Reading course. Come join me on an incredible journey with the cards. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. Until next time, for the New Earth One Network, this is Matthew John.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in Unity Consciousness. Visit newearthone.com.